Hi there, this is Philip Calvert from philipcalvert.com, and you're listening to The Speaking Show with David Newman.
I have a very special guest, international man of mystery, Philip Calvert. How are you, my friend?
I'm extremely well, thank you. Man of mystery, that's a good one. I like it.
Well, and we're going to unpack all the mysteries. And I want to just chat with you a little bit about where you started in this business. So right now, today, you are the LinkedIn guru, the social selling guru. You have this gigantic speakers group on LinkedIn. We'll talk about all of that. But rewind the tape, and how did you kind of come to have the business that you have today?
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. I started in the corporate world back in 1978, I think it was, in financial services. And I worked with a lot of big insurance companies in the UK. Actually, there were global companies based in the UK. I was basically on the sales side. My job was to go out and meet financial planners and try and convince financial planners that they ought to be recommending our products. And I just loved the sales side of it. You know, it was the proper, we had to go and see 20 financial planners every single week. And I love the simplicity of it, was of the, however bad your products might be, the more people you went to see, the more business you got. I thought that's something quite interesting. The products were terrible, but if you did the work, you got the business, which was fantastic. And one of the ways I got the work, part of my panel was in the City of London, and I was one of the few sales guys in the company who didn't use his company car. You know, we got the tube and we got cabs, and lovely in the summertime, but in the winter it was pretty gruesome. And I thought, wouldn't it be better if instead of me going to see the financial planners, why don't I get them to come and see me? And I started thinking, well, what could I do? We've got a nice office in the City of London. So I start putting on little workshops, little breakfast seminars. Little tip here for anyone thinking to put on seminars: the power of the bacon roll or the breakfast roll to get bums on seats. Incredibly powerful. And I start doing all-day workshops, little workshops, and we got a few senior executives and some experts in the building there. We got the chief executive, we had some underwriters. And I thought, well, I'll get the bums on the seats and we'll do a bit of schmoozing and handshaking and networking. Then I'll pass it over to the people who actually know what they're talking about. And my sales figures, I went from seeing 20 people a week to sometimes 20 people a day. And as a result of that, sales figures through the roof. I qualified for all the sales conferences, that kind of thing. And it was my wife actually said to me, said, well, you've figured out how to get people in a room. Why don't you write a book about it? And I wrote a book called Successful Seminar Selling, came out in about 2004, something like that, around about the same time that I was asked if I would like to leave and would I take a check. And that was kind of my moment to go out on my own as an independent marketing consultant. And initially, I was teaching people how to put on seminars, how to put on workshops. I still do that occasionally. I'm doing one in a couple of weeks' time. But it was around the time when the internet was kicking off as a tool to help people interact and engage. LinkedIn was just about to appear, but I was using a site that was around long before LinkedIn called Academy.com. Back in 1998, it was doing what LinkedIn does now. And the idea was that you could create a profile, you talked a bit about your interests. I learned pretty quickly online that people buy people online just as much as they do face-to-face. And I've been kind of moderately obsessed with this concept. It was called social networking back then. It wasn't called social media. The ability to use the internet to build your network, to interact and engage with people, to help people out. And when LinkedIn appeared, it was just a natural thing for me to start using. And to cut long story short, even today, I reckon I get about 90+% of my speaking business from LinkedIn. But like any other bit of software, it only works when you've really got stuck in and learned how to use it properly.
Right, for sure. And so we're going to come back to that. But you also have another niche, which I'd be very curious to find out how you got pulled into this, the automotive industry. So you were the financial services guy, you were the seminar selling guy, How did automotive come into the mix?
Do you know, it was one of those things, somebody sees you, you know how it works better than most. Somebody sees you speaking at a conference, another door will open, and an automotive magazine, I think it was, Fleet News, I think it was in the UK, and they said, would I like to come and speak at a breakfast meeting? And all the big boys and girls from the big automotive firms were there. I did my thing about how they could use social media and they could use LinkedIn to attract more fleet customers. And then all of a sudden they start saying, oh, could you come to our dealership? Could you come here? And I spent a very happy year going around the automotive dealerships talking about how to use social media. And it became a niche for me.
Very, very interesting. I want to go back to something that you said back in the financial services world, which I think many people might have just flew right by, but you know how critically important it is, and so do I. Doesn't matter how good the product is, could be good, bad, or wonderful. You gotta sell it every single day. So do you feel among our speaker community and even the experts, consultants, coaches, there's not enough proactive selling going on, is there?
Do you know, in some respects, and certainly in financial services, selling is a bit of a dirty word. Isn't that weird? I mean, we don't eat unless we sell. So selling is so important. To me, there's two types of selling on the internet. There's the pushing out the emails or doing the Facebook advertising, driving people into funnels and doing it that way. But then there's also the kind of selling which is value, 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 and then some more value. Keep showing up until people start paying attention. And you just have to do that. And I think the top speakers in the world, the top financial planners in the world, get most of their business from referrals. They've seen your work, they've enjoyed your work, you've delivered great service. But even the top speakers know you've still got to put yourself out there and you've got to really focus. You've got to have a plan for attacking your niche market. And you've really got to understand your customer. So selling is as important today as it's always been, if not more so.
And I want to go back to another seed you planted just a couple of minutes ago, which is that you get 90% of your business from LinkedIn. I know this is one of your areas of expertise. You've got this fabulous online program that helps us do this. You've started this group of 20-some thousand, 24,000 speakers and presenters with your group on LinkedIn. Give us just the basic building blocks of how, what's the foundational source of your success using LinkedIn, knowing that there's a lot more detail behind it, of course, but give us the fourth grade version.
Okay, that's really interesting. So it goes back to before LinkedIn appeared, to this site called Ecademy. Ecademy doesn't exist anymore, but the founder of Ecademy was a guy, Thomas Power, and his wife, Penny Power. And they came up, I guess it was them, with the concept of having a page which was all about you. And one of the things that I observed really quite early on, and to contradict what I said earlier now, one of the things I noticed was the less you sell yourself on social media, the more you sell. And what you tend to find was, let's say an accountant might join Ecademy and they create their profile. And what they start doing is they start talking about tax and stuff that accountants like talking about. And how dull is that? What I noticed was that the people who revealed something of themselves were the people who were getting the most contacts, who were getting the most work. And it reminded me of something my dad said years and years ago: people buy people. They always have done, and they always will do. Even in an online world, they will. And I noticed that particularly in the online world, we are drawn to people where we've got something in common with them. And I noticed that with LinkedIn, one of my little tricks is to really, really look very closely at people's profile and dig around for something that you've got in common with somebody that you want to talk to. Now, quite often, what you'll have in common is a mutual connection. And that's fine, because you can say, hey, David, I found you on LinkedIn today. I noticed that we've got a mutual connection in Frank Furness or Jeff Ram or someone like that. It would be great to connect. How are you today? And I've developed some scripts that I use, and I get pretty well almost a 100% success rate with my connection requests because I personalize it. I mean, if you don't personalize your connection requests on LinkedIn, you might as well not be on there. And if you're anything like me, you get your connection requests come in, you might get 1 out of 100 where someone's made the effort to actually use your name or say, hey, I spotted you. I see we're both in the same group on LinkedIn, or I see we're both into martial arts or something like that. Look for those little things. And to me, that's the building block, is remembering that people buy people and to use the human touch. But possibly before that even, one of the things that's so important is to understand and know why you're on LinkedIn. Almost every time I speak to an audience, whether it's a little workshop I'm doing or it's a big conference, I always ask the audience, could you put your hands up if you're on LinkedIn? Right, everybody sticks their hands up, yeah? And then I go, now put your hands up if you know why you're on LinkedIn. Hardly anyone puts their hands up. So we're all on it. We've all gone on there like sheep because everyone else is on it, so I ought to be on it as well. And we wonder why it doesn't really work for us. So you've got to know why you're on LinkedIn, and you've got to have a plan. It means getting a piece of paper or whatever recording device of choice you use these days and really having to think about it, brainstorming it, use your whiteboard. For example, if you convince yourself that your target customer is not on LinkedIn, then maybe it's not the site for you. I think for most speakers, their target customer will be on LinkedIn. I mean, let's put it this way, that meeting planners, every meeting planner is on LinkedIn. There are 3 or 4 groups on LinkedIn for meeting planners, and some of them have huge numbers of members in there. So I'm guessing that almost every speaker, their target market will be on LinkedIn. But you've got to have a plan. You've got to know what you're doing. And when you've got a plan, then all of a sudden the magic starts to happen.
So let me ask you just a couple of things, even before we get to what that plan might look like. And, you and I go way, way back on LinkedIn. Like you said, it was called social networking. It wasn't even called social media, right? So LinkedIn's really the first social media site, even before that term became into popular usage. In the old days, I think this is much less a thing now. They had the Lions, right? LinkedIn
Yes.
Open Networker. I will connect with anybody, anytime, anywhere, any reason, total stone cold strangers. I'll connect with dogs and cats and dead people. Is that a good idea, or is that foolish to just accept everyone and build your network as big as possible, as fast as possible?
That's really interesting. Lions, it was almost like a secret organization that I'm sure if we were both Lions, we had like a secret handshake that we might use when we meet up. Okay, so there's 2 schools of thought on this. The first school of thought on this is you only connect with your exact target audience. In fact, the really, really serious networkers don't think of themselves when it comes to using LinkedIn. Their entire goal in life is to try and help out other people. That's a great attitude to take. So the first school of thought is you only connect with the exact perfect type of person. So that might mean that you have a really small, very focused, highly niched network. And that's fine. The other school of thought is that you connect with absolutely everybody and everybody, a bit like the Lions. And the thinking behind that is the more people you're connected to, the greater the likelihood that an unexpected door will open. Serendipity, yeah? Now, LinkedIn, you have to remember, is a piece of software. And like any piece of software, like your CRM system or whatever it is you use, unless you really know how to use it, you'll never really see the full value. In other words, get training on it. Now, so one of the things about LinkedIn is LinkedIn rewards you for doing the latter. In other words, connect with as many people as possible. LinkedIn will reward you. And the way it rewards you is it puts you higher up the search results. So if somebody's typing in a speaker coach, okay, hopefully you're going to come up high up there anyway. But if you've got a big network, LinkedIn will make sure that you appear higher up the results because it figures that people only want to be connected to somebody who is well connected. Again, my dad once said to me, your old boys network, lovely old-fashioned phrase, will be the most important thing that you ever take with you through your working life. And there's a certain element of truth in that. So it comes down to your plan. Do you want to be just super focused, in which case just connect with a small number of people, or do you want to play the LinkedIn game and connect with as many people as possible? And I'm in the latter. I connect with pretty well everybody who wants to connect with me, except for the obvious spammers And I don't connect with people who don't use their name in their profile. If they use their company name in their profile, I'm not interested.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. So let me ask you, we'll do a little inside baseball or inside football if we're over in the UK. But, baseball's big over here. Groups. You have this fantastic group. I want people to look for this on LinkedIn. I want them to join, and we'll fill up all of your resources and links as well. But this is something that they need to look at. They need to join. They need to study what you've done here. It's called Philip Calvert's Professional Speakers, Seminar Leaders, and Sales Presenters Forum. Right now, with over 24,000 members, LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft. Yep. LinkedIn seems to be constantly making changes. Groups is one of these things where it's been kicked around like a football. They were big, and now it's like, yeah, we're not sure. And now there's some hints like, oh, it's going to be huge. It's going to be revamped. You're going to be so glad that you have a group on LinkedIn. As a thought leader, as a social seller, as a professional speaker, tell us about the game plan around groups or where the future of groups is going. And should we own a group? Should we be active in groups? What's going on?
That's really interesting. So we used to say, didn't we, in the speaking world, that every speaker needs to have a book. That's what always used to be said. And that may be the case. Today, your book is, if you like, it's your calling card, it's your business card, it opens doors, it implies expertise, all that good stuff, yeah? I now say to entrepreneurs, yeah, a book's a great thing to have, but what I think is possibly even more important to have now is your own group, is your own community, your list, for want of a better thing. Now, I started my group for speakers quite a long time ago on LinkedIn, and I'm not quite sure why I did, because I figured speakers were my tribe. And I set this thing up ages ago, and I've just watched it grow, and I've never really known quite what to do with it. I also have a group for financial planners, as it happens, as well. And I now realize that groups, communities, are the best thing on the internet. Actually, to me right now, the best thing on the internet are Facebook groups, private Facebook groups. If you think of in terms of your value ladder, now I would imagine for you as a speaker coach, you probably got at the bottom end of your value ladder, you've probably got some free stuff, yeah, that you can give to people so they get to know you. And maybe further up your value ladder, you've probably got a webinar, something like that. And I'm guessing now the top of your value ladder is probably one-to-one, high-end coaching direct with you. And that's going to cost people a lot of money, but they'll get a lot of results from it. So I use my groups now as the bottom of the value ladder. It's free. The members can network with other people. They can ask questions, and I can put my own content in there. And once in a while, every now and again, I'll try and sell them something. And to me, this is how social selling works. Value, 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 sell. Value, 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 sell. Yeah? So I'm kind of using the groups. In the old days, that would be my Rolodex, if you like. I don't have any business cards around anymore. Everybody I meet, I say, come join my group. So every speaker I meet, I say, join my group on LinkedIn. On Facebook, I do the same thing. And for financial plan as well, come join my group. And what is amazing is because like-minded people are in that group. They're in with their own tribe. They will meet people they've never met before. They will share tips, exchange ideas, exchange resources, ask questions, help each other out. One of the things that never ceases to amaze me is the willingness of people within groups to support each other and to help each other out. So that's my main thing. Now, you also mentioned about groups on LinkedIn. Are they any good? Are they not? What's Microsoft doing with them? Yeah, once upon a time, groups were also the best thing on LinkedIn. And they then had a design change 3 years ago. And groups just fell off a cliff. There is almost no engagement in LinkedIn groups. And content that was in groups used to appear on the main news feed on LinkedIn. Doesn't do that anymore. However, an email came out from somebody on LinkedIn about a year ago saying, we recognize that groups are important to people. We're going to be working on them. They did some research amongst group owners. I took part in that. And then another email came out last week saying, we're getting there. You're going to be really excited about it. In the meantime, we're going to have to break groups even more before we get the new fixed version. So I'm figuring that by the end of this year, groups are going to be a big thing again on LinkedIn. And it's a no-brainer for LinkedIn because they've seen how powerful groups are on Facebook. And all they've got to do is copy some of the functionality that Facebook have in their groups. And groups will once again become an absolute powerhouse of opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm very excited about that. But groups are more than just a place to hang out with other people like you. For marketers, I say to every speaker I ever meet now, every consultant I ever meet, every coach I ever meet now, I say, you must have your own group, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on Facebook or somewhere else, because the ability to add value, to show up, is absolutely phenomenal. And the more value you add, when you want to then go and sell something like a webinar or some coaching, just their natural thing, oh yeah, I'll pay for that. If I have to pay for this, it must be good.
So let me ask you, because this is something that I get some questions about. I'm sure you get a ton of questions about it when you're doing your speaking and coaching as well. The group cannot be about you. Unless you're some celebrity, unless you're some rock star, it's not going to be the David Newman group. It's not going to be the Philip Calvert group. I'm wondering, when you started the group, you've done something very, very smart here. And you know it's very smart because that's how you did it. Was it ever just called the Professional Speakers, Seminar Leaders, and Sales Presenters Forum, and then you added your name to the front of it? So you're the host, you're the convener, and now it's Philip Calvert's Professional Speakers, Seminar Leaders, and Sales Presenters Forum. But obviously, it's three of them and one of you. So you're saying, here's who it's for, here's the community, right? Did you add your name later, or did you always have your name on the group?
Great question. Well observed. I added the name later because, first of all, the group is for the members. The content is for the members. This is really interesting. So I liken this to a bit like a fish tank. And the tank is the group, the members are the fish. And you can have a fish tank, but if you don't feed your fish, they die. And by feed your fish, let me show you my favorite prop. Let me get my favorite prop.
Sure.
I use this on stage now. It's a thing of fish food, right?
Very nice.
So, I use that. And
love it.
Fish in a tank need feeding. So on a Monday morning, I will feed my fish. And by that I mean, and depending on the group I'm using, I'll either send an email to every member of the group, or I'll put some content in the group. And guess what happens? When you feed your fish with content, tips, links, resources, ideas, videos, stuff, blogs, guess what happens? They all log in. They swim around, they eat the food, they say hello to each other, and off they go again. Some of them come back 10 times a day. I look at my stats, okay? Tuesday, I feed my fish. They all log in, swim around, eat the food, say hello, off they go again. Wednesday, feed my fish. Same thing happens, right? Now, if on the Thursday, I forget to feed my fish, okay, guess what happens? They all still turn up because they've come to associate feeding time. And as humans, as animals, that's what we do. We get into those kind of patterns. They still turn up, they look around, they pick up the scraps from the day before, okay, and off they go again. Just to really stretch this analogy now, let's say I forget to feed them again on the Friday, they still turn up. But this time, many of them bring their own lunch with them, which they share amongst themselves. In other words, they put in their own tips, links, resources, ideas. And all of a sudden, you have community building, okay? And I still feed my fish every single day, but as the group matures, they become comfortable helping each other out. And I could sit back now and the thing just runs itself. However, I have that group for a reason, not just out of the goodness of my heart. I've got to eat, so I use it as a place, as a community for them. And every now and again, I will put something in there that they have to pay for, be a webinar, be it a live event, something like that. Now, again, just to stretch this a bit further, because I've learned over the years that there are techniques to running communities and keeping them going. And one thing I do is occasionally, instead of putting fish in the tank, putting food in the tank, I'll give them something harder to chew on. So I might throw some stones in the water to create some ripples. In other words, content that is a little bit more controversial, stuff that winds them up a little bit, yeah, gets them going. And once a month, I'll throw a brick in the water So with my with my group of financial planners, I've got like a secret list of things that really wind up financial planners. Once a month, I'll chuck one of those in there. They go bonkers, yeah? But I don't do that too often. So I try to reflect real life community. So where you live, maybe your tennis club, wherever it is you hang out, we all belong to communities, right? And even in those communities, there's good stuff that happens and there's bad stuff that happens. So in our online community, I try to reflect real life as well, put controversial stuff in as well as good stuff. So with the speaker group, it was originally all about speakers, but once I've established it and they know that I'm the guy that feeds them, then I added my name later. So my financial planner group is called the Life Talk Mastermind Group with Philip Calvert. So what you'll quite often see in some of the big Facebook groups, you'll see that it's whatever the name is with John Smith, Susan Smith, whatever it is like that. And you can brand it up and have an element of branding. And of course, after a while, you can then extend it and have chargeable groups as well. I'm often asked by people, could they pay for advertising in my groups? I even had one person offer to buy my speaker group as well. So all of a sudden, we're sitting on something that starts off as value that we're giving to people that suddenly has real monetary value in its own right as well.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Now, you mentioned something about Facebook groups. Is it the same sort of thing on Facebook as LinkedIn? Or because LinkedIn has slowed down a little bit with the engagement, are you still feeding both sets of fish?
The straight answer is yes, but I noticed something else, which was absolutely fascinating. So I've got the name and email address of every financial planner in the UK, okay? And we originally created our own social networking site for financial planners. It was like a cross between LinkedIn and Facebook just for financial planners. They were getting so much value in the site, but not all of them were joining it. And I thought, what is it? I've got about a third of all the financial planners in the UK would join this group. And I thought, so why weren't there? So I then started a LinkedIn group for financial planners, and a whole bunch of them joined it. I then started using Twitter, and a whole bunch of them started following me. And I also created a group for financial planners on Facebook. But what I noticed was the overlap of membership. So let's take Facebook and LinkedIn. The overlap was really low in percentage terms. So that told me that some of them didn't like the Facebook experience, but they preferred the LinkedIn experience. I then kind of did some number crunching and I discovered I've got pretty well every financial planner in the UK in a fish tank somewhere. Whether that fish tank is on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever it is, I've got them in a fish tank. All I've got to do is feed them.
Now, do you feed them the same content because there's not a lot of overlap?
Broadly speaking, yeah. Otherwise, I'd be up all night.
It'd be a full-time job.
I have a few tools that I use that help with automation of that, finding content. And of course, say you take Twitter, it's got to be in bite-sized chunks compared with something else. So some financial planners and some speakers, for that matter, like long-form content, some like video, some like audio. You know how it works.
For sure. Now, you mentioned something about, I love this whole feeding the fish analogy because it's brilliant. I think the whole value distribution model could be talking about hunting, fishing, feeding the fish, baiting the hooks, putting the right bait on the right hooks in the right ponds to catch your specific kind of fish, whether it's in the automotive industry, the financial services industry, the speaker industry. You said that they turn up because they've gotten conditioned to show up at that time. Is it literally a time of day that you feed the fish? Like, is it always 10 a.m. UK time, or can it be any time during that day?
That's really interesting. It is for email. So I also combine this with email marketing as well. And I found my perfect time of day to send out an email, in other words, the fish food, is between 8 a.m. and 8:30 in the morning. Interesting, I was talking to another consultant to financial planners at a conference the other day, and she sends out an email newsletter, and she says her figures say her best time of day is 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, in the Facebook group, one thing I've noticed is that I do certain things on certain days. So in the UK right now, it's 20 to 3 in the afternoon. It's Friday. At 4:30, I put a post in the Facebook group that says, how's your week? Tell us about your week in just 3 words.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. And I do that every Friday at 4:30, and it gets dozens and dozens and dozens of content. And, and some people are super fast. They're on it, which suggests to me they're sitting there waiting for this thing to come up. At least I'd like to think they're thinking that.
Right.
So I think we are creatures of habit.
We are, for sure. Well, I'm going to ask you just two quick final questions. The second question is going to be, how can people get more Philip Calvert? How can we get connected and stay connected to you? Let's talk about the website. We'll talk about the Facebook group. We'll talk about the LinkedIn group, whatever resources. Sure. And we're also going to put those in the show notes. When people go to thespeakingshow.com, they'll be able to click all of that. And so if you're in your car, don't pull over. God forbid, don't take your hands off the steering wheel. Stay calm. All of Philip's resources will be on the website. That'll be the second question. My next question is, looking at everything that we've talked about, and this has been so valuable, Philip, what is the one concept that you hope people remember from our conversation?
I'm going to be cheeky and say two. I think one is the groups. Groups are so important. And I said, I liken it, particularly with your audience, David. Books, high quality content like that, really, really powerful. But I think it's an absolute must-have thing now to have your own group. So if you're a speaker on leadership, I would be creating my own groups on Facebook and LinkedIn based around leadership. And put the content in other words, feed your fish, and the people will come. Initially, it sounds like you're shouting into an empty aircraft hangar. It's just you. But one of the things about social media is quite often it comes over as a marketing thing. It's often seen as a marketing thing. And it's seen as something that some guru or some consultant told you need to be doing. And I'm now of the view that social media is actually part of your proposition, particularly as a speaker. If you're not speaking on stage, you're speaking through social media. Obviously, there's things like YouTube, podcasting like you're doing yourself. So view social media as a communication tool to your target audience rather than a marketing tool. It's part of what you do. So the other thing, I think the really so important concept, if you want LinkedIn to work, yes, have a plan, but fall over yourself to communicate at a human level. From today, never, ever, ever send a connection request that hasn't been personalized, and highly personalized as well. I've got a webinar. I think you've gone for this resource.
It's awesome. I totally invested in that, and everyone listening should listen up to this part.
It's a 4.5-hour webinar. There's no adverts in there. There's no fluffy beginning. It's solid content. But in that webinar, there are some scripts that I use that work for me that I've developed over the years. And you can also download those scripts as a separate document. To me, it's the script. And basically all the scripts are humanizing the connection. And when people start communicating with people as human beings, like we would do if we were meeting face to face, it suddenly comes alive. And I'll give you one final thing where this really shows up. To me, the best thing on LinkedIn is the tool that shows you who's looked at your profile. To me, that is the only reason worth paying for LinkedIn Premium, is so that you can see the full list of who looked at your profile. And here's the thing. Imagine you were working from a street. People could walk in, yeah, and meet you there and have consulting off the street. If somebody walked in off the street and the first thing you did was like ignore them, or you ran out back and hid, they're not going to want to work with you, are they? And it's the same thing on LinkedIn. If someone looks at your profile, they've done it for a reason. They don't do it by accident. People never look at your profile by accident. Yeah, sure, they may be a spammer, but they've chosen to spend a moment of their day looking at your profile. And some of those people will be potential clients. If you just ignore them, they're never going to work with you. So I have a routine every single day. I look through the who's looked at my profile, and I then look at their profile. I look for something that I've got in common, and I use one of my scripts, and I always customize the script accordingly. And as I said, I'll make a connection request to them, and I get pretty well 100% on that. And that's why I get most of my speaking business through LinkedIn.
Fantastic. So let's give people the goods. How do we get connected and stay connected to Philip World?
Okay, so I use two ways. First of all, please come find me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name on LinkedIn and connect with me there. That's the first thing. And they will see this in action. And when they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll respond in the way that hopefully will give them a few clues, okay? The other way is through Facebook. And I'm more than happy to connect with people personally on Facebook, but come join the group. Search for LinkedIn Secrets Mastermind Group. I also have a page on Facebook called LinkedIn Secrets. Look for the group. join us in the group and you can ask me questions, help out other people. And in that group, there's a ton of different resources. So those are fundamentally the two best ways.
And so I'm going to give you my favorite compliment, the compliment that means the most when someone says it to me, because this is so true of you as well. The reason that you want to listen to Philip, the reason that you want to invest in this webinar that I invested in, is he is one of the few people in the world of internet marketing and online marketing that he drinks his own Kool-Aid. So when you watch him in action, right, he is doing what he's teaching you. When people say that to me, Philip, what I say is, well, listen, here's the deal. I'm either teaching it to you or I'm doing it to you. And pay attention to both. Pay attention to both. Have a ringside seat as to what I'm doing and have a ringside seat into what Philip's doing.
I love it when that happens. You had a previous podcast with Jeff Ram, the customer service guru, and he's a classic example of walking the talk. It's so important.
Right. It's just the three of us, my friend. I think it's just you, me, and Jeff. We're the only ones that are actually walking the talk. Everyone else is smoke and mirrors and nonsense.
I'm sure there's more.
there may be a couple more. Well, Philip Calvert, thank you. This has been tremendous. This has been awesome. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been really exciting. Thank you, David.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.